This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Hi, good evening to another edition of the Away End. I'm Craig Courtney and I'm joined this evening by Luke White from the Simply Reds podcast for our Crawley supporters. So first of all, thank you, Luke, for joining.
No worries, thanks for having me on.
So we're going into the game on Monday evening on Sky TV. Another sellout crowd from a Birmingham perspective. So we'll have a raucous atmosphere for those fans that are travelling down. And it's especially important because it's the last game before the Christmas period. So we're going to the game with Crawley, currently 21st in the league, with 5 wins, 4 draws and 10 losses. And coming off the back of the weekends, I think it's fair to say, raucous game and a bit of a thriller against Peterborough with a 4-3 defeat for Crawley. Birmingham going into that game on the back of 6 wins and the weekend's 2-0 win over Bristol Rovers. So hopefully, from my perspective, they're going to continue to win the games. But I know from a Crawley fan, you're going to be saying the opposite. So we go, normally talk about the history of the clubs, but actually, we haven't got much of a history. So before I go into talk about the one single game that has taken place between Birmingham and Crawley, Luke, tell us a little bit about your podcast, what you're about, how long you've been going. I think the title simply says it all, but Simply Reds, I take it, it's just pure and simple about your club.
Yeah, quite literally. To be fair, look, Crawley, by no means, it's no secret that Crawley are one of, if not the smallest club in the EFL. Certainly one of the smallest supported. And for many years, we've had a space available for a Crawley Town podcast. There hasn't been one. There was one a few years ago, and there just hasn't been. We're not a massive fan base. The interest hasn't been there, etc. But the guys at the Supporters Alliance kicked one off at the start of the year, which has gone down really well, and then I sort of came on board to help them out through just after the summer, after joining the Supporters Trust board as such. So it's quite literally, it's about Crawley. Try and do it weekly, but it's as life gets in the way, we sometimes do it bi-weekly, and we have specials with ex-players, or sometimes we're lucky enough to get people from the club on. So we are quite fortunate that we seem to get sort of both sides of the coin. So we try and remain slightly impartial as well in terms of any criticisms of players and stuff like that, because ultimately we are supporters, so we want to support the players on the pitch, especially when we know this season in particular was always going to be a struggle for whoever was going to be on the pitch in a Crawley shirt. So it's because it's the start of the year. The guys have done it really well, and obviously it's really helped the fact that we kind of had the run we went on at the end of last season, got to Wembley, and then have had the season, or the start to the season we've had so far, because certainly not been a lack of things to talk about from a Crawley perspective over the last sort of 12 months, 2-3 years even. It's certainly been a whirlwind time for the club as a whole.
Fair to say it's been a bit mixed, really, hasn't it? I mean, like you say, the Wembley game, which got everybody on a high, and then it wasn't too bad a start, I would say, to the season. But I think looking back over a few of the results, they haven't been the best for yourself. But I will also turn around and say that against teams that are higher in the league and are really having a go, you do tend to have the good games against them. And Peterborough being that example where it was so yo-yo in terms of the goal scoring. I bet you just didn't know which way to turn next, really.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The last time we played at Peterborough's ground, we lost 4-3 after being 3-2 up in nearly added time, and then ended up getting relegated on the final day the week after, the last time we were in League One. So we're no strangers to going to Peterborough and losing 4-3 at this point. So it was a bit of a brought back some bad memories, that's for sure. But of course, like, anytime you go away and score 3 goals, it's always disappointing to not come away with at least a point. Um, but it's the bravery we have sort of come to play with, not only with this current manager, but the last management team as well. So it's how we play, and we play on the edge, and as annoying as it is that we've conceded, or we lost the game, we've conceded those goals anyway in other games and not gone on to score 3 goals. So I think the positives are that we have gone and actually put the ball in the back of the net 3 times and been dangerous on the attack. And I'm hoping that that's the positives that we're taking forward rather than the fact we've shipped 4 goals again, because I think we all knew we were going to probably concede a fair few goals this season, and the goals had been struggling to come by. But recent weeks have really improved, and we're starting to put the ball in the back of the net, which was the biggest issue we'd had. So yeah, it's frustrating, but it probably wasn't. Peterborough are in a bit of a false position, and I think we'll see them kick on a little bit now. So it's not one that I've dwelled on too much. We've got some bigger games coming up that we'll need to be picking results up at, and we've had some good results recently against teams as well who we probably had no right picking results up against. So we can't. We know we can't win every game, but the performances have at least been there and improved from where they were maybe 2 months ago. So yeah, we'll take it with a pinch of salt. We lost the game. We'll move on to Monday and be excited to welcome you guys. That's for sure.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Crawley team then. So obviously for ourselves, no history whatsoever in terms of the games. The last time we played, in fact, was a League Cup game. Birmingham won 5-1. A hat-trick from Che Adams, and I think the other 2 goals for Birmingham from Robert Tesh and David Davis. But then since then, we've not even been, close to each other or played the games. So as fans, I've got to be honest, we don't know anything really about Crawley. So tell us about the team. How do you set up? How does the manager structure things? And what are your strengths and weaknesses in terms of the team at the moment?
If you'd have asked me that, say 7 weeks ago, it'd have been a very different answer. We'd had a new manager coming from Gateshead of Rob Elliott, and we were shipping goals. We were easy to play against. We weren't scoring or even really troubling goalkeepers. So it was a very different scenario 6-7 weeks ago. Now we seem to be much more settled, and he seems to have found his team. And we've been a bit unfortunate with missing key players this season. So he typically likes to set up with a 3 at the back, but they do seem to transition over to sort of a 4 where needed. We will play with kind of 2 holding midfielders. We'll play with 2 wing backs, albeit they do tend to play quite high up the pitch, so they are more wingers than wing backs typically. And originally it was always sort of 2 number 10s with 1 outlet, but now we seem to play with that 1 number 10 and two target men up top, with Will Swan and Tola Shawandli. So and it's proved in recent weeks to be the way to go, because we are much better for it offensively. We're still shipping goals, and that comes through having players at the back who probably weren't expected to be starting a lot of this season, in Joy McKenna and Charlie Barker. Joy was a bit part player last season, and certainly wasn't expected to be thrown into the spotlight from the get-go. And he's played nearly every game for us. Charlie Barker came in from, I think, National League South. Again, I think was probably expected to be loaned out, and he's played most of the last 10, 12 games because of injuries and suspensions. And we've had probably 4 different goalkeepers already this season through injuries and international duties and loans and emergency loans, and it's been eventful.
Whirlwind.
But a 3 at the back, with a couple of wide players, who I'm hoping, one of them, Junior Armando, is back in the squad. He's missed the last couple of months through injury, but I'm hoping maybe he's close to returning. I don't know if he's going to be fit enough for Monday, but if he is, that'll be a big boost to us, because it would be great to have another outlet out wide, because we've really started adjusting our play to have more pace out wide, and it's caused teams a lot of problem recently. So I don't quite know strengths at sort of fullback or wing back. But if they are sluggish by any means, then we might have a bit of an outlet down either side, because we've certainly got some players who can hurt you on the counter if we get the balls right offensively.
So is it fair to say, from what you said, that the structure of the team and the setup is more of a counter-offensive team, or is it
Well,
more of a
yeah,
high
yeah.
press? How does it
I
work?
think the press has definitely come back into it. I think we had a period where we were too scared to press, and we were getting caught out left, right, and centre. Then we sort of reverted a bit more to a secure type and let teams come onto us a bit more, and then we had a bit more success. And I think, if anything, we sort of moulded the two, where we get numbers now back behind the ball, but where we're happy to keep it, but we're also now willing to take a few more risks with forward passing and try and break the lines a lot quicker, rather than just keep knocking it about and keeping the ball for the sake of keeping it. Because I think that's where we really struggled. We struggled that when teams got low blocks and got players behind the ball, there was no space for us to be able to actually go and take players on, or they'd be doubled up, or there just wouldn't be the space for our striker, who'd be so isolated he'd have no options around him to actually lay the ball off to. So I think now we've really sort of figured out that we still like to have the ball, and we still do tend to have a lot of the ball, but we do also realise that actually now we can ping it out wide, and we've got players who will take players on, and we've got players who are willing to be those runners in behind and support from the midfield as extra outlets for the attacking players. So there's not really a straight answer to that, because I don't think we really are as possession based as we have been in the past. But I also don't think we're um, sitting there to soak up the pressure. We
Yeah.
like to be on the ball as much as any other team, and we like to make sure that we can have as much of it as possible. But I think we just move the ball a lot zippier now, a lot quicker, and that really benefits the players we've got in this team. So it's a much different scenario. We've almost gone through about three different phases this season in terms of how we started the middle portion of this first half of the season to where we are now, and that's just come through the transition of the coaches that we've had to go through.
So, what would you say are your strengths, and where do you think your weaknesses are in terms of the way the team is playing at the moment? Because it certainly sounds, from what you're saying, that the start of the season, it's totally different now to where you were. Obviously, credit to the new manager coming in and stamping his authority on just the whole structure and the way that you play. But what are your strengths and weaknesses now?
The weaknesses is definitely the easiest one to answer, because it's set pieces. Conceding from set pieces is although it has got a lot better, but it felt like every week there would be a goal at least from one corner, if not two. In some occasions, it felt like three or four. But yeah, crosses and corners / set pieces have been our kryptonite this season. I think there's been, through the variety of different lineups over the back sort of three or four, back three and the keeper, that hasn't helped in terms of understanding and the communication between them. So, goalkeeping errors have played a little bit of a part in it, albeit the goalkeepers we've had have been decent shot stoppers, and albeit not as good with their feet, arguably. So defensively, it's definitely going to be through set pieces. You might have the most luck, albeit we don't have the paciest backline either. So if we are caught out on the counter, I don't think the guys who play there would sort of argue that they're not the best defenders, considering none of them have any League One experience, and they're coming up against players like Jay Stansfield, etc. And they've come up against some really good, astute League One players already this season. So I think they've been learning to adapt to where they need to be positionally. Offensively, we are, I think, a lot better now in terms of our wide play. I think when we've typically had a fellow called Jeremy Kelly start out wide, and he's bias hat on here, one of the most exciting players in the league. He won't get shouted about too much because he plays for Crawley, but I'm hoping on Monday a good few hundred, or I don't know how many you'll bring in. If it's going to be touching 1,000, but
it's an away sellout, so I think
you're not going to get many at Crawley, that's for sure. I mean,
one of the smaller stadiums.
It'll be
Definitely one of the
interesting.
smaller
It'll be
ones.
interesting. But yeah, Jeremy Kelly will be the one I'd say to keep an eye on the most because he's a very exciting player when he gets on the ball. He's very hard to get the ball off of. But he's not he's surprisingly quick. He's quicker with the ball than without it. It's a really sort of unusual technique, but he's such a flair player. He's very good, but he's sort of drifting more centrally now, and I think that suits him a lot better.
Hmm.
And why that suits him better is it allows us to put a bit more pace out wide, and through that pace we kind of have either Hepburn Murphy or Forster or Armando when he was fit a couple of months ago who'd pick up the ball and drive it forward. And again, the pace they had is frightening, and it gets us 15 yards up the pitch. So out wide is really good, and even in the middle of the park, I think anything across our midfield is probably our strength this season. Goal scoring has been a bit shy, but that's picking up. But I still wouldn't say we're sort of the most clinical team yet. I think we're still missing a few too many chances that we need to sort of be taking against teams where we're not going to get many chances, which I expect Monday to be one of them. So yeah, our strengths are definitely our midfield, whether that be centrally with our number 10s or holding and out wide. But weaknesses, unfortunately, are going to be set pieces. They're our kryptonite.
Sounds as though, your midfield being the strength, and fair to say that's one of the main strengths of the Birmingham side as well. The Paikin Iwata partnership with Williamson there as well is just it's phenomenal when they link up. Some of the football they can play, and as much as I know you'll hate it, but hopefully you'll get a chance to see some of that on Monday as well. But I think if you've got two midfield areas that actually are tough to get through, then it's going to make for a very interesting game. And set pieces, it's fair to say, as a Birmingham fan, we don't see many goals scored from set pieces. More from open play than we've seen in a very, very long time. But also similar to yourselves, we're not putting chances away. We're not putting teams to the sword. We take the first 20 minutes against Bristol Rovers, and it's fair to say Birmingham were unplayable. You couldn't touch them. But then in the second half, it was foot off the pedal and actually allowed the team to come back into it that little bit more. And that is a frustration of the fans. But sooner or later, there will be a team that it just clicks against, and they will score plenty. So, change of manager. What do you think the difference has been since you've had your change of manager? And is it just a case of, look, he's playing to the players' strengths, or do you think he's brought something to your club that stabilised the team?
The style of play is not so dissimilar from one another. I think the ownership group went in with Rob Elliott as their first choice from the get-go, even before Scott Lindsay was without the door. I think they knew that when the day eventually came, he wouldn't be manager, that Rob Elliott would be the natural successor. I think the biggest difference between them is Rob Elliott seems to be a much more quiet person. Scott Lindsay used to, you'd hear him barking from the touchline, left, right, and centre. He'd be very vocal in press conferences, etc. Whether it be defending his team or stating things he wasn't happy about. Rob Elliott as a person is just the complete opposite of that. But their ideals on the pitch aren't dissimilar. I think that's precisely why Rob Elliott was the next choice. So it's just interesting. I think Scott Lindsay went into this season with a couple of less or different players to what Rob Elliott now has, because we've signed a few players in between that gap, and some players have been injured that Scott didn't have. Now Rob has got. So who knows if we'd have more or less points than what we'd have if we still had Scott Lindsay. But Rob Elliott hasn't so far proven to be the wrong choice, and I think he's finally showing now, after a bit of patience and after a poor start through some of his own fault, through tactical issues and other things outside of his control, injuries and also the fixtures he was drawn up against. One of his first games being Wickham, who I think actually we were the first team they beat before they went on that monstrous winning
it's an
run.
unbelievable run. They have
who could have
they've
seen
played
that?
Birmingham. They haven't lost since, and it's fair play, but it's credit, and it just shows that when you've got a team that is stable and free flowing, can score the goals, there's no reason why you can't go on those runs. So now I think it's going to be interesting on Monday. I take nothing for granted with anything in this league. You go to Birmingham, go into Shrewsbury, they get a new manager. You kind of expected a little bit of a new manager bounce, but then we just didn't turn up. And it was a very poor show. We've gone on another run now of wins, taking some decent ones both at home and away from home. We're going into the festive break where I think it's 5 games across a 13-day period. It is mental.
Yeah.
And we've still got the Virtue Cup, the FA Cup, still to come in. So from a fixtures perspective, wow, we're looking at a bottleneck. But hopefully the squad is there to continue the runs and see us cross the line. So, I mean, we mentioned at the beginning that we've only played the one game against each other. But we have actually had some players over the years that have represented both clubs. Can you name 5?
I can definitely not name 5. When you told me there were 5, I thought, I couldn't. I struggled to name one at the start, and I've come up with 2 names. One who is one of my favourite Crawley players ever. I think Bez Labala, did he play for you initially?
Indeed, he did. Yes.
I don't know if we signed him from you or if he was a club before, but it was certainly close that we either got him from you.
You did. You got him on a free transfer from Birmingham.
Yeah, and he was really good for us in a period of not so good days where we were sort of languishing a little bit and not had much excitement at the club. And he's obviously gone on. I think he's still at Wickham now, and playing well there and up the top of the table. But yeah, he'd be one player I'd love to have back one day if that ever came up. But I don't expect him to ever come back to little old Crawley. And the other one would be Connell Truman, who's been playing for us this season. I only know that because I had to look him up when we signed him. So that's literally the only way I know that. But so yeah, they're the only 2 I could even. I'll be surprised in the other 3 days. If I'm going to kick myself with any, I'm going to be really interested to find out who else there was.
Well, I mean, to be honest, you've got 3 loan transfers and 1 other free transfer. So Bez Labala was a free transfer between the 2 clubs. The other free transfer was Callum Preston, as a goalkeeper who signed for you back in 2015-16.
Oh yeah, no chance of remembering that one, because I don't even remember him playing for us if he did. So yeah, wow, that's a blast from the past.
Another left back, as well, that came that same season, Mitch Hancock's.
I do remember the name. Yeah, I think he said left back. Yeah, interesting.
He came to you on loan. You also had another goalkeeper, I think was one of our youngsters in Michael Lewambilla.
Oh my lord, yes. I remember the name.
Yeah, so 2019, 2020.
Not fun memories, but yeah, I remember the name.
And the other loan transfer that came to you in that same season is Josh Dagricogley.
Oh yeah,
yes, he was there for you.
A bit annoyed about that one actually. I feel like I should have got that one definitely. I'm a bit frustrated with that one because I do remember. I remember that just playing FIFA actually. I mean, Dacus probably. I could never pronounce his name, but I remember. Yeah, okay, a bit frustrated with that one, but yeah, I'm pleased with the 2 I got. I'd have been annoyed if I'd have got any of the others and not the 2 I got. So that's a small win in my head anyway.
So we're going into Monday's game, which no doubt, I mean, first of all for yourselves, a biggie from a Crawley perspective. Like I've mentioned, we've got a sellout, and it's the same words each time I mention it from an away end perspective, but a sellout again of the fans even travelling on a Monday. So you're going to have a raucous bunch of blue noses down there.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting seeing what you guys think of our little stadium. That's for sure. It's going to be an interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing all the Birmingham fans. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't even know if I don't think we've sold out to my knowledge. So which I'm a bit disappointed about. But maybe on the day there'll be a few sales go through and it'll be quite a full house. But I must say, and I don't think it'll be the first time you hear this, but there was certainly the one to earmark for us at the start of the season, finding out when we were playing you guys. So yeah, thoroughly looking forward to Monday.
And it comes to that point where I have to ask the question, what, in terms of the result going into Monday,
Yeah.
does your head say it's going to be, and what does your heart say it's going to be?
My head says it's going to be. My head says that we're going to lose 2-1. Um, yeah, I'm. My head is almost too negative. I struggle to think, that Crawley can truly get a result. My heart says we're gonna win 3-2, and it's going to be a bonkers game because we do tend to have those this season. But unfortunately, our defensive frailties can sometimes hinder us. So I think what I could see us get snatching a draw. You never know. A game under the lights just before Christmas.
Indeed.
Christmas miracle. We might get a 2-2, but yeah, it's going to be. I think it'll be a tighter game than what people might predict. I don't think it's going to be a hammering. I think it's going to be actually a really good game, and I'm hoping it's a good game that if we aren't the only fan base going away happy, at least there may be. I don't think you guys will be happy unless you get a win, and you'll be expecting a win. But I think, yeah, if we can snatch a point, then that would be nice. But if we could get a win, then Merry Christmas all round with a couple of tough games coming up just after Christmas.
I think, I predicted on our show that it's going to be a tough game. And in fact, I think I said, I've said a 2-0. I just think there might be that little bit extra that we can bring to the party. However, as with all games in this league, I do not underestimate any team that we're up against, because we see it across everywhere. There are these results that nobody can ever call, and it also tends to be this time of year when we tend to see these really freak and strange results. So who knows what will happen? But my heart and my head is both saying a 2-0 win. I think we'll see goals from Jay Stansfield, and I believe Alfie May will get one as well. They seem to be striking a bit of a partnership at the moment, where naturally seeing Alfie play as that lone striker, and then Stansfield coming in off the wings is working wonders. But interesting that you mentioned, about your attacking fullbacks and things like that, because Anderson is on fire at the moment, playing across the wings. He's not afraid to get forwards. He is really having a phenomenal time. He was superb again on Saturday against Bristol. Made some great runs, and that's where I think our strengths are at the moment. We are great going forwards, and the defence, our two centre backs are just staunch. Getting past Clara and getting past Bielik is really, really tough. The two full backs as well. We're coming forwards quite a lot more. Buchanan stood out an absolute mile on Saturday. Considering he's been injured, he really did do well. So looking forward to another game. And I've mentioned the midfield, but if you can stop Iwata and you can stop Paik from playing, you've then got to stop Williamson. And it's one where we just seem to create space from nowhere, and the guys are picking passes. So hopefully we'll continue to see that. Before I say farewell, there is one other question that I like to ask. Away fans were coming down. I know it's a Monday night, but they'll still like a bevy. So where should they go and have a drink?
Well, if they're coming down by train and they're going to Crawley Central sort of station, there's probably there's a couple of pubs on the high street, which is sort of the opposite direction of the stadium, but it's probably only a 5-minute walk from the station. So you've got a Weatherspoons, which is called the Jubilee Oak. But opposite, if you were to Google the Jubilee Oak, there are sort of 3 or 4 pubs all in that local vicinity across the road from each other. The White Hart, Punch Bowl, and others, which you can have a bevy at. Alternatively, you do come to the stadium, because the stadium is quite isolated from any other pubs. There's one pub about a 5-minute walk from the stadium, which is called the I think it's the half moon or the new moon. Not even I can remember what it's called. I've not been there for years. Something moon, which is within earshot of the stadium, and you can see it from the windows. Alternatively, come down to the stadium. We've got Red Spar, which we're probably one of the only clubs in the EFL that has the home and away sections sort of mingling pre-game because we don't have an away fan zone, or you won't be able to buy anything in the stadium when you get in there. I think it's going to be a real eye opener for a lot of fans there when they turn up Saturday. So yeah, come down to Red Spar where everyone's sort of welcome. By all means, it gets busy, so get down there as early as you can if you do want something at the stadium beforehand. But yeah, Red Spar at the stadium. One of the moons, half or new moon, whichever was close to the stadium, or you've got stuff in Crawley Central sort of town where you get off at the train station.
Awesome. Well, Luke, as always, thank you very much indeed for joining me to go through the details of the upcoming game. Really looking forward to it. Another stadium that is going to be ticked off for quite a few fans, especially those that are aiming to do as many as they can out of the league. And a game to look forward to under the lights on Monday evening. So thank you very much indeed for joining me on
Thanks for having
the
me.
away end. Come Monday night, or after Monday night, I wish you all the best in the league. But come Monday night, I want you to have your one of your worst ones, and then obviously the return game at St Andrews at Knighthead Park. Yeah, you can have you definitely have your worst one there because I like to see a few goals.
I hope not. I think that's a Good Friday, isn't it?
But no, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And as always, I'll sign off by saying thanks a lot for all your support and keep right on.